Chris Miller and Chase Hughes here. Chase's first time here at the NBA Draft Combine. I got to get your just early impressions of what it's like for you to be here with all these executives and prospects.
Incredible. I mean, I love the NBA Draft. I watch the NBA Draft Lottery every year, and to be in that room was amazing. And it's funny because there were some media members who've been there before, and some of them were like, yeah, I don't even want to be in the room. It's too intense. But it was really cool to experience that.
You know, so now by now everybody knows the Wizards have the 8th pick, and obviously everyone wanted to get Victor Wembanyama, but that's not the case. That's the San Antonio Spurs. But I think at 8, the Wizards have an opportunity to get a player that can help them right away, and there are certain players that have really kind of sparked your interest.
Absolutely. I mean, the NBA draft has been full of talent the last few years, really. There's been some loaded draft classes. But this year, I think, is tailored to their needs in the short term and the long term very well, because they might be able to choose between not one, but 2 defensive point guards with size, in Anthony Black and Cason Wallace. Or if they want to go with a wing, a guy like Cam Whitmore can impact the game on both ends of the floor, or Grady Dick is a really good outside shooter. They need 3-point shooting. So I think the players that are in their range just fit them so well. You don't necessarily want to draft for need at 8th overall, but they might be able to get the best of both worlds.
And as we wait for the Wizards to name their general manager, there is still opportunities to get business done right now. The question is at 8, do you stay there? Or, as I told you earlier, if you really like player X, you can go get player X. You don't have to stay at 8 or trade down. Like, if you want to move up, I think the Wizards have value on their roster that would allow you to move up in the draft to get that player.
Potentially, but I don't think they necessarily need to. You know, the 8th pick is the best draft pick they've had since 2013. It's been 10 years. And a lot of the players in their range, I just like what they can do on both ends of the floor. I like the positions they play, the styles, the intangibles. And a lot of the guys that they might be choosing from really help themselves in this combine with their measurables and the numbers that they put up. Like Cam Whitmore, for instance, 41-inch vertical leap. Anthony Black, 39-inch vertical leap. Jarris Walker, he's 6'7". He's got a 7'3" wingspan. Those 3 guys are in the Wizards' range, and it's interesting because they're top 10 picks, most likely, because of their skills and their intangibles. The guys ahead of them were thought to be a lot more athletic, but there's some real athletic players that the Wizards might be able to choose from.
And those players that you mentioned went to programs in college where they've produced a lot of really good talent. One guy that has really intrigued me has been Cam Whitmore, the kid from Archbishop Spalding. What I like about him is he's a baby, but he looks like a grown man. And just spending some time with him, this is a kid where his father would bring him to Wizards games, and when I asked him about the Wizards, you could just see the look on his face where most of these kids are, you know, they've been trained to say the right things in these media sessions, but I got the sense from him really it would be like an honor for him to play for the Wizards, and the way that he played at Villanova, he's a very interesting prospect.
Yeah, it was so cool. He said he'd come home from school and his dad would surprise him with Wizards tickets, and they would make the drive, which was about an hour, into D.C. to watch the games. And I grew up a Wizards fan. My dad took me to one game. He was kind of cheap when it came to the ticket prices. I remember I saw Reggie Miller when I was a kid. But it was a very relatable story. And there's just a lot of Wizards connections in this draft class. Talking to Jet Howard today. His dad began his career, Juwan Howard, with the Wizards and had some really nice things to say about D.C. Nick Smith Jr. and Brandon Miller played for Bradley Beal's AAU team. Jarris Walker's also from the D.C. area. He went to Wizards games growing up. Same with Jordan Hawkins, who played at UConn. But Cam Whitmore, he said that the Wizards have a special place in his heart, and he would be the perfect player for them. Like Wes Unseld Jr. the last few days has been saying they need athleticism on the wing, they need a guy who can defend, and a guy who can create his own shot off the dribble. That sounds like Cam Whitmore.
He's got that Baltimore dog in him, too, which is, again, an intriguing prospect. Going back to really Nick Smith and also Brandon Miller, they both have experienced the Bradley Beal AAU mentor speeches. So it wouldn't surprise me, like, if Nick Smith came to the Wizards, he's probably accustomed to Brad cussing him out. So it would be kind of be like, oh, he's just blending in with Beal and playing for him. It just kind of speaks to like how old Bradley Beal is now that you've got guys now in the league that have played for his AAU team. Moving forward, though, again, as we wait for the Wizards to make the decision on who the general manager is going to be, like, what's the next step? What's the next priority for the organization?
Well, first of all, on the AAU guys, Bradley Beal's been in constant communication with them. Nick Smith Jr. said he talked to Brad yesterday on the phone, And Brandon Miller actually said that he has a missed call from Brad. He's still got to get back to him. He called him last night, maybe offering some words of encouragement, but he's been talking to those guys. The next step for the Wizards is to continue the interview process. They've been talking to a lot of these players. They'll talk to more throughout the week. Wes Unseld Jr. has been leading a lot of those interviews because right now, obviously, they're looking for a GM. And he said one of the things he's trying to do is get them out of their comfort zone. He pulls out a whiteboard. He gives them a pen. He said, draw up a play. And he tries to see who can pass that test.
It was funny. Grady Dick was telling me he was interviewing with the Wizards, and Wes did that. And he was like, I answered the question, and Wes said that he was going to do that when I talked to him the night before. It's like 25 minutes. They call it like speed dating, just trying to get to know the prospects. But again, the overarching theme this week here in Chicago is really doing the talent evaluations, being able to sit with these guys and looking at the measurables and where they fit. The next step really for a lot of these prospects is they're going to go out to L.A. to do some more of the camps, and then those individual workouts where guys come to your program and come to D.C. and work out in front of the Wizards as we get ready for June's draft. For Chase Hughes, I'm Chris Miller.